This morning, we will be skipping over a community spotlight so that we are able to provide enough time for this fabulous program. It's a professional education of a panel of professionals to present to us on respite. Where can I find it? I will go ahead and read bios for each one of the four, and then they have the presentation that they'll be in an order that they wish to present to. First of all, I have Kathy Lucina. Most of you know she's one of us, and our board member here is a community outreach specialist for senior living communities. Most recently, she was the sales director for Revel Eagle, an over 55 senior community living community in Eagle. Her career has spanned decades of working in the retail and technology industries. She entered the senior care industry and discovered her passion for serving the seniors in the Treasure Valley. Her positions in home and healthcare have given her an added perspective on the challenges that seniors face as they continue on their life journey. Her position as sales director at Revel allowed her to draw from all those experiences when helping seniors find their forever home. Kathy has served on several committees relating to senior care in the Treasure Valley, including the Idaho Guardians and Fiduciary Association, HAPPEN, Idaho Health Continuum of Care Alliance, and LEARN. Lisa Underwood will be joining us this morning as well, Respite Program Manager for Aging Strong. Lisa is the for the Aging Strong programs. Respite and companionship is provided for older military families through the faithfully weekly visits of volunteers. She oversees the recruiting, onboarding, and ongoing training of her volunteer team. Empowering others to live a life of purpose is her true passion. Lisa has raised 3 young men, has been married to one terrific guy for 32 years, and loves doing anything if it involves being outdoors. We next have Reverend Irene Laudeman, PhD, is a staff pastor at Cathedral of the Rockies in Boise, where she oversees contemplative workshop, small groups, adult education, and pastoral care. As part of the pastoral care ministry, she launched and oversees the Care Collective, which is a respite care program for adults living with dementia. The Care Collective offers a social model of care where we offer loving community to people experiencing memory loss while providing respite time for their caregivers. Ministry is a second career for Irene. Prior to her ministerial work, Irene worked as a chemical engineer, then received a doctorate in experimental psychology and worked as a NASA researcher and then as a private consultant. And last but not least, our moderator and board member in Learn, Julie Torresani, has had a lifelong standing career with the Southwest Idaho Area Agency on Aging, where she currently serves as the supervisor for the Idaho Community Care and Caregiver Support Programs. With over 20 years of experience in the aging services field, Julie has devoted much of her work to supporting senior services and caregivers across Idaho. With that, I'd like to turn this over to Julie and the rest of the team. Thank you so much all for coming to provide your professional guidance and advice this morning.
Thank you so much, Karen. And another kudos to Karen for all her work on the professional ed series. She is a volunteer. And if you are ever offered the opportunity to present with Learn, Karen does a fabulous job of helping to corral you, get your PowerPoints together, make sure you are all set up for success. And I know that I can drive her crazy with being kind of last minute on some things, and she's always a delight to work for. So thank you, Karen, for all your work with the education series that you've promoted. So yes, my name's Julie Torzani, and we were asked to, have an hour-long discussion on respite options. And so we gathered up a panel. We have Kathy and Lisa and Irene. Each of us are going to talk a little bit about the programs. Then we're going to open it up for a Q&A session. I'm kind of the moderator for the panel that we have going on here. So if at any point you guys do have questions or burning issue, feel free to unmute or raise your hand. I'll be moderating the chat. So if you can always put a question in the chat. But what we're going to go ahead and start with, next slide, please. I thought it would just be probably best to start with just some basics. We're on this call. I do believe we're all professionals working in the senior community of some type. So I just thought we would start with some basics. So helping a caregiver identify. So who is a caregiver? I think that sometimes I've been in this field so long that I sometimes forget that people don't know certain words, right? Like, so what is the word caregiver? What does that mean? Often in the public, someone does not think of themselves as a caregiver. This is a big struggle. I've said that this has become we need like a public service announcement, on caregivers, like helping a caregiver identify that they are a caregiver, because a caregiver often just thinks of themselves as, I'm just the wife taking care of my husband because I love him. She does not see herself in that caregiver role. I'm the daughter who just helps mom and my parents run errands or do the finances. I'm not really their caregiver. They are. They're over there all the time, helping to assist them to make sure they stay independent. So when we're out and about and in our work and even in our personal lives, we have so many friends and family members who have a connection with someone who's needing some assistance with maintaining their lifestyle. And so always keep in mind that sometimes a caregiver just doesn't know that they're a caregiver. When we do identify a caregiver, we need to help educate them on their need for respite. Because always the goal for a caregiver is that we want them to thrive, not survive. Not just to survive, but we want them to thrive in their caregiver role. And so, two important things I just ask of all of you: help identify a caregiver. And when you do identify that caregiver, help to promote and inform them that they too need respite. Next slide. So we're going to do a basic. So what is respite? Because the general public doesn't know this word. I always think of my mother is 78, soon to be 79. My dad's 79. If you said the word respite, she would not have a clue what you were talking about with the word respite. So sometimes we need to we are so used to using common language that we might forget that the general audience or general public doesn't know what this word respite means. So I always try and keep respite very simple when I speak with someone. I say it's a break from your caregiver responsibilities. It's a moment of relief for you to take, just a moment of relief. And every individual always defines what their respite looks like for them. What's respite for me might be very different from what's respite for Dara. I might like to organize a closet, and that is something that's off my to-do list and is organized. Dara is get me on a cruise. So, everyone views respite differently. But when you're out and about, just super, super simple for someone. If they don't know this word respite, just, hey, you're a caregiver, you're taking care of your spouse. You really have to take a look at taking a break for yourself. The best way that you can continue to be a caregiver is that you also have to take care of yourself. And it's okay to have this moment of relief in this caregiving duty that you have. Next slide, please. And then I'm just going to briefly, I want to give enough time for everyone else. There are 6 agencies on aging throughout the state of Idaho. Agencies on aging have respite programs. They are the same throughout the state. Everyone will be kind of different in how they do those programs, but you typically have two respite programs. Agency on Aging will have contracts with certain respite providers, and those contracts read that a caregiver is given a certain amount of hours per month to use for respite care through that contracted agency. And then the 6 agencies on aging all offer a consumer direct respite program. And that program allows a caregiver to hire a respite provider of their choice, so that if there's not an agency respite provider available, or if their loved one would do better with a family member compared to hiring an agency, that respite program is available. That is why it's called consumer direction respite. It allows the caregiver to select the best respite care available for them. Basic eligibility throughout the state of Idaho is going to be that someone needs to be age 60, whether it be the caregiver or the person that they're taking care of. So if you have a 41-year-old daughter taking care of 82-year-old mother, they're going to qualify because that 82-year-old mother is over the age of 60. So once again, across the state of Idaho, they're going to be looking for someone that's over the age of 60. No other entity is covering respite. All agencies on aging funding is tight. If someone else is already covering respite costs, like health and welfare or the VA programs, then agencies on aging are there to serve those who have no services in place currently. And typically the care receiver is going to require 24-hour care and supervision. So there's a need that the caregiver is afraid to leave their loved one alone, and they need to hire a respite provider to stay with their loved one while they are getting their respite. So I didn't want to overwhelm with too many details. Those are the broad basic eligibility and the respite programs throughout the state of Idaho for agencies on aging and what they offer. I'm now going to turn it over to Lisa Underwood with Aging Strong. And she's going to talk to us about her volunteer respite program that she operates.
Really appreciate that. I love your definition of a moment of relief, because it is really hard to break it down sometimes. And man, just those 3 words, I'm gonna be using that. So thank you, Learn members, for letting me be here today. Tis the season to share germs, and so I'm a little fuzzy-headed and groggy sounding. So gosh, Julie, if I start talking about like underwater basket weaving instead of respite, just give me a little like Zoom slapping and wake me back up.
I want to keep it light anyway. It's our last session for the year.
So thank you guys for letting me be here. We love what we get to do at Aging Strong. Basically, in a nutshell, I'm going to be focusing on the piece of Aging Strong that is the Respite Companion Program, but I do want you to know that Aging Strong as a whole has different pieces to it. We have 4 different program service areas, and we have the privilege of leading over 100 volunteers. All our programs are volunteer powered. We're really thrilled about that. We love our volunteers. The average age of our volunteers are 72. So we're just love working with the older population. Not only are the volunteers' lives being changed through service and connection, but the folks they serve are being changed through service and connection. And if you want to go to our website, that next little slide there, it just is a screenshot of our website, agingstrong.org, gives a good feel for just how we really help families in our community thrive. And we make sure older adults don't feel alone. All of us here on this call, we know that that's a struggle with the older population. And so what Aging Strong does is connect those folks that might even be feeling alone themselves and connect them to a place of service. I'll share a quick quote and then I'm going to dive into Respite Companion Program. But one of our program participants that is receiving a volunteer through the Respite Companion, she's living with dementia, and she has been going every week to the Meridian Senior Center with her volunteer, and she doesn't talk a whole lot, but everybody at the table really includes her and just makes her feel loved and just part of that moment at the Meridian Senior Center. Well, the other day, the volunteer was taking her home, and this lady looked at the volunteer and said, "I feel like I belong again." And it was such a cool moment because that kind of sums up what we want for our older population. We want them to feel they belong. And so that's what we're all about at Aging Strong. So check out our website, see what else we do. But I get the honor of leading our respite companion program, and that's that next little slide there. Um, I don't know if we want to take time to show the video or not. What do you think,
Yeah,
Karen?
we
You want to
have,
give it a whirl?
absolutely, we have time.
Okay, cool beans.
Okay,
Yeah, go ahead and share
let
the
me
video.
see if I am enabled for sound. Let's see here.
As Lovely said that you just said cool beans.
Yeah, we're in professional education, cool beans as well.
Okay, let's see if it is enabled for sound, and if not, I might need to reshare. So let's see if it works here.
So we
No, it's
provide a volunteer weekly to a home of a military family for the sake of companionship and support, get them out of the house. It's usually folks that aren't driving anymore, that are just feeling a little bit isolated. So we really come alongside those older military families, do fun things. We take them on a scenic drive. We take them out to breakfast, to the Warhawk Museum. We just have a good time providing life, creating a moment. It's pretty awesome.
I love volunteering for Legacy Corps. This is my 5th year. I have a heart for veterans, and I love giving the spouses of disabled veterans respite every week. I just absolutely love it, and I think it's something I would hope to do for the next couple of years.
I served for 3 years in the Army. I retired from a family business, and I found myself with a fair amount of time that I wanted to fill up with meaningful events. I signed up, and this is my 4th year, and that's the primary reason. And I have no end date in sight.
I would say if you're out there and you want to help provide purpose and connection for somebody, Legacy Corps, our volunteer companion, is a great way to dig in there and make a big difference.
Thanks for figuring that out, Dara and Karen, for the sound piece. So we actually used to be called Legacy Corps, a little bit confusing. If any of you know us in the community as Legacy Corps, we're just simply Aging Strong Respite Companion Program. Legacy Corps was connected to a specific grant. However, same exact mission, we still give a break, a moment of relief, as Julie taught us today, to family caregivers and companionship for those loved ones. So we match our volunteers with the family of an older military connected family. A lot of people think that the families we serve have to be a veteran. They don't have to be a veteran. We just have a military connection in the family. So kind of keep that in your mind. And when you want to refer us, it could be a widow of a veteran. It could be a grandma whose granddaughter is active Army. So just military connection. And the whole goal of those visits is just offering companionship for those who need that little extra support, a much needed moment of relief for their loved one. So next slide. Talking about just the real impacts with real people. I love, love, love all these pictures. None of them are AI generated. They're all our people just making incredible moments with, although I love AI, by the way, Tina, so that was not additional. Yeah. But this is all just true blue moments of reality with our people spending time with the families that we serve. And as you can see, it's just getting out, sometimes just having a good time, or maybe sometimes it's involving taking them on errands or getting them to a doctor's appointment. Basically, things that just seem so easy for you and me to get out and do, we try to provide some support in those areas. And it's all, again, volunteer powered, which is really beautiful thing. That's why we do have a wait list of families. However, I always tell folks, get on the wait list, because the matchmaking little process, I like to call myself the little matchmaker. Sometimes we connect a family fairly soon with a volunteer just because they live near a new volunteer, and all of a sudden we get to make that wonderful phone call that you have a volunteer with our respite companion. So don't hesitate to refer folks our way and get them on my little list, because it'll be, hopefully we'll be able to get them somebody. So just a little thing too, we can't provide any medical care, personal care. Oh, yep. Oh, I thought someone was asking a question.
oh, Karen's trying to. There we go. Go ahead.
Gotcha. Yeah. So We don't do any personal care or medical care. That's another little thing too. We're just simply basic companions. As you can see in that one little center picture with the lady with the red shirt, she actually helped create a life story for a gentleman, a Korean War veteran. And we have a really cool new grant that we're implementing right now and just having so much fun with is building these life stories for families that are interested in our community. I won't get super in the weeds with it because of time, but it's a really cool project. So we got a lot of fun things that we do through that Respite Companion program. So if we could move on to the next slide. Aging Strong Respite Companion outcomes. I know some of us just love talking numbers because numbers do matter. This is an average numbers of 2024. We were in the middle of a software shift, so this is close, but it's going to be average. In 2024, our Aging Strong Respite Companion outcomes, we have 50 plus veterans and military connected families that we serve. That's every week with 2 to 4 hour long visits for free, which is pretty awesome just in Treasure Valley. In 2024, the Respite Companion volunteers provided approximately 16,000 miles of transportation, which is a pretty big deal. As we all know, transportation is lacking in our area for the older adults especially. We delivered over 4,000 hours of free respite, and we also generated an estimated $140,000 in cost savings for families who would have had to pay for this respite, these moments of relief. Pretty awesome. Yay, volunteers and Aging Strong. We're so grateful. So next little slide, how can we work together to serve our community? Just let families know if you have places where I might be able to tap in and find some beautiful souls that want to serve and volunteer. Please reach out to me. Just use your networks and connect me because we want to shorten that wait list significantly. And then just the very last slide, and then we'll pass it back to Julie, just who to contact. That's me. I'm Lisa Underwood, my email and my phone number is on there, and then also our website. So thank you so much, Learn Friends, and thanks, Julie.
Thank you, Lisa. And thank you, Lisa. Lisa has a volunteer appreciation event today that starts at 11. So we thank her so much for joining us this morning and fitting this in on a very busy day for her with her volunteer appreciation later on this afternoon. Lisa, I have a question and I'm sure it might come up. One of the questions is how many hours a week do the volunteers commit to volunteering for?
You bet. We ask them to commit to at least 2 to 4. And that just gives the family member who's getting that moment of relief enough time to get out. Some volunteers do a little bit more. It's kind of up to them and the family, but we ask for at least 2 to 4 hours each. And it's the same volunteer with the same family each week. So really special relationships are built as well.
Okay, great. And we're going to come back and we might have more questions for you as we go through this panel discussion. We're going to go ahead and move to Irene. Irene is going to share with us the Care Collaborative Respite Program for adults with dementia.
Good morning. This is actually a fairly new program. We had our first Care Collective session on July 10th, and we started 1 day a week. You can move to the next slide if you want. We started out 1 day a week from 10 to 2. 4 weeks ago, we added our second day a week, so we now meet on Wednesdays and Thursdays from 10 to 2. We have a social model of connection. Our passion is to provide community for people who are living with memory loss and actually community for their caregivers in a separate program we're just starting to spool up as well. We are volunteer powered from start to finish. If you want to keep moving here. I think you can keep going here. I think everyone now understands the respite model. So what we do in the 4 hours is we try to offer a real range of activities. We tend to move from activity to activity every 20 to 30 minutes to keep people engaged. We always stop at least every hour to do some kind of a physical movement. These are video clips that I'm not going to be able to play for you. Just short clips. Balloon volleyball is what you see in the upper right-hand corner. When I first heard about it, I thought it was the silliest thing ever. Everyone loves it. They just love it. So almost every day after lunch, and we do serve, by the way, a hot lunch every day. We play balloon volleyball, or we do some other kind of movement, which is what you see, some chair movement in the lower right-hand corner, if you want to move on. Music, we have found that music is just unbelievably powerful, live music. And we now have a whole handful of musicians that we have coming in. We try and do music twice a day. So usually 10:30 or 11 o'clock, we have music, and then we end with music between 1:30 and 2. What we're starting to notice is our caregivers arrive early because they like to sit in and sing with us and appreciate the music that we have going on. That's turning out to actually be a larger cost for us because these are usually professional musicians. They can contribute some of their time, but they can't week after week, month after month. And so what we're starting to do is go ahead and pay these musicians at the same rate we pay our church musicians. And so bigger cost than we expected, but critically important. We're finding out. We have people who speak not at all, but when the music starts, they sing. And they keep time. We hand out drumsticks and such, and they keep time, and their faces light up, and they engage in a way that some of them don't with any other activity. So it's really powerful stuff. If you want to move along here. Mental stimulation. We play all kinds of games, very particularly focused on stimulating cognitive function, also fine motor function as well in some of the games. We have, gosh, a couple of dozen different kinds of table games we do with folks. Here they're playing, lower left, they're playing poker. The participant in the baseball cap there loves poker. We always have a poker table running, and we're playing other card games here. By the way, these are older pictures. They're taken in our church library. We've already moved to a larger venue because we've grown so rapidly. If you want to keep moving here. Special interest. So we have therapy animals that come in. The folks just absolutely love that. We have other people come in and set up very special kinds of crafts for us, or talk about special interest kinds of things that people might be engaged in one way or another. By the way, this little dog, though, is one of our favorites. We get him in once a month at least, if you want to keep going. Lots of crafts. This is really simplistic looking. Again, for Christmas, we created all kinds of crafts. Some of them are actually pretty cool. Some of them I actually brought home to use in my house for decoration. So they're not sort of trivial kindergarten kinds of things. Folks are really engaging in some really interesting and creative crafts. If you want to move on here. We're about social connection. These are all volunteers. We usually run at least 2 volunteers for every participant that's there. They are there because they are loving human beings who want to be there and connect and build friendships and build community with these folks who we have coming in. And they just do an amazing job of it. This woman in the lower left corner is one of our earliest participants. She comes virtually to every session we have. Her name is Carol. When she came to us in July, she was virtually catatonic, and she has just blossomed. She doesn't speak a lot, but she does speak, and I've had some limited conversation with her now. Engages in the music, has her favorites. So I have about 4 or 5 volunteers who I always pair with her because they are really able to connect and bring her alive. If you want to keep going here. So we have a really strong feel that a social model means that there is really very little difference. People walk in the room, and other than a couple of our participants who really are moving out of the moderate and into the advanced stages, and sadly won't be with us probably for much longer, people can't tell. We wear the same name tags. We all participate. There's nobody in the center there. That's Coach you see standing there. She's our respite manager. incredible woman. She runs all of our sessions, and I'm usually there keeping an eye on everything going on. Everyone else is at a table. You want to come and visit, you're sitting at a table like a volunteer. We don't surround our participants with people watching them, as it were. We're all there to build community. I even have volunteers coming up asking me, so is that a volunteer or is that a participant sitting at my table? And I measure that as a success of our program, that we are all there because we all live with something. And in this case, some of the people in the room live with memory loss. If you want to keep going here. Just some quick program information. We are there for people living with mild to moderate dementia. We are a social model. We don't give meds. People have to be able to toilet themselves and to eat more or less without assistance, although we do provide some, help people cut up their food and whatnot. This is already outdated because we offer now Wednesdays and Thursdays from 10 to 2. We always include a hot meal because that's part of building community. We all sit together and share that meal, which is a way to build the social bonds along with the physical activities. And everything we do is focused on building relationship, no matter what the activity is. We focus a lot on the conversation that goes along with whatever activity we have so that we develop authentic friendship, because these are all adults in the room. Even if they have a significant memory loss, they're still adults with a lot to give, and they help us. Like I said, sometimes we have some participants who are very, very helpful, and I think some folks are absolutely convinced that they're volunteers because they're some of our best volunteers. Let's see here. I have a very strong commitment that we be a sustainable program. Years ago at our church, we had a respite program that died after their initial grant ran out. And so we charge $55 for a 4-hour day. We are a church, however, and we have turned no one away, and we won't turn anyone away. We also have some very generous donors, and I'll go through sort of how we're supported. But ultimately, I have a business model that will mean we will be sustainable, will be break even long term. And part of that $55 a day is how we're going to do that. It's still very inexpensive for the quality of respite care we can offer. But I need to know we're going to be around 10 years from now. And so that's part of how we do that. If you want to go on. Our volunteers, we now have 45 active volunteers in the program. They rotate through. We schedule them the way we schedule all our volunteers with our back office system. So it's a pretty efficient way to do it. These people, we actually have about 1/3 men and 2/3 women in our volunteer corps, although you wouldn't know it by this picture. We're finding that the men volunteers, our men participants who come in really need to connect to other men often. They have often only female caregivers in their lives, and they are desperate for male companionship. And so we tend to pair any male participant with at least one other guy, sometimes two, so that they can start building those kinds of connections. These are absolutely loving volunteers. Every woman in this picture actually is also a member of my pastoral care team. Of course, they're who I pulled first when we started this new ministry, and they're just incredible, already experienced. And by the way, they get 3 hours of training when they come in, as well as background checks if they haven't already been background checked, as well as our own what we call safe sanctuary training, which is about how to keep children and vulnerable adults safe in our building, in our programs. And then we have monthly trainings that we have set up as well, where we have professionals in the community come in and train on various kinds of things. So we had Stacy Gunnarsson from Granny on the Move come in and talk to us about communication. We had a wonderful woman come in this month who worked through some improv techniques for staying in conversation with folks. That was just a hoot. It was a lot of fun, actually. And so we are committed to the ongoing training of our volunteers as well. let's see here, our participant bill of rights. We really, really stress and correct each other if we find we're not being very respectful and allowing people to make all the decisions about what they want to do while they're there. So nobody ever has to participate in any particular activity. We always have options. People are not spoken to, obviously, as though they're children, because they're not children. And we're there to build actual friendships with these folks. And I think we really succeed. When we started talking about this program last spring, there was real concern about, oh, people with dementia might get agitated, angry. Well, that doesn't happen in our program. And I think in part, and Dr. Audie Black, when he came and talked to us, he's a medical professional in the community, has observed the same thing. When you're very respectful to people, people don't get upset and they don't get anxious and they don't, you know, start getting loud or acting out in any way. We've had absolutely none of that in our program, not any of it. The one concern we have is a couple of folks who wander, so I always put several volunteers with them. And a couple of the guys, after 4 hours, they want to go find their wives. And so sometimes there's a certain amount of redirection that we have to do, talking to them about, you know, when their wife is coming back. It's very interesting. The men go looking for their wives, but the women don't. None of ours so far seem to have that same kind of anxiety about their husbands coming for them. So there's some gender thing going on there I don't understand. Let's see here if we want to keep going down. Cathedral of the Rockies is, they've been in the community for 150 years. We have lots of community outreach programs, all kinds of things related to social justice. We run a daycare center that we've run for decades. It made it easier to spool this program up because we had the infrastructure in place because we already had a daycare center. And so this is basically an added ministry that is pretty consistent with the kinds of things Cathedral of the Rockies has done for decades. I do want to emphasize this is not a religious program. Most of the people there don't know that I'm a pastor even. We take any participants, we take any volunteers. I recently had a gentleman come up to me and say, I'm an atheist, but I want to volunteer. And I guess he thought it might be a problem, and it certainly isn't. We actually have volunteers from the local synagogue coming, as well as from a couple of other churches. We're there about loving community. There's certainly no requirement, and we don't talk a lot in religious terms at all. Even when the senior pastor comes in, we hand him a mic, but I lean on him pretty heavily. You're not here to give a sermon. So if you want to keep going down here. So we're at our downtown campus of Cathedral of the Rockies, so it's down on North 11th Street. We've already moved to a larger space in the facility. It's a very large facility. It's about 100,000 square feet and includes a daycare and a kindergarten downstairs. We are up on the main floor in what used to be our youth room. If you want to scroll down, I can talk a little bit about how we're funded.
I don't see that one.
Oh, gosh.
Why don't you just tell us?
I will tell you. Let me pull it up on mine so I don't miss anyone. Okay, so we started with seed funding of 25K from a donor, a private donor. And then one of the first persons I talked to was Julie Torresani at the Agency on Aging, and she gave us some seed money. That was an initial $5,000 we used to buy some of the special furniture we needed. We need chairs with arms that are really sturdy, for instance. And then we got a CDRI grant, the Center for Dementia Respite Innovation, a significant grant that we are able to use to hire our manager. And we recently received another grant through Health and Welfare from the Alzheimer Dementia Research. I can't remember the whole acronym. That 25K is going to a voucher program so that people who can't afford even the $55 will be able to still attend. Those vouchers we will funnel through health and welfare, probably Agency on Aging, although Julie and I haven't talked about that yet. We will be talking about that, and probably the VA. We have one veteran participant in the program. I am myself a vet, and they're close to my heart. And so we probably will try to work a lot more with the VA, and maybe some of our vouchers will run through them as well. We had a small startup grant as well from the Faith Foundation, which is a Methodist-based foundation in the Northwest. And recently got some more funding, just received the check, thank you, Julie, from the Agency on Aging, that we are going to be using for caregiver support. I want to talk about that. We always knew we would also have caregiver support, but we were trying to get this main program up and running. We had our first caregiver event 3 weeks ago, and I was just stunned. Virtually all of our caregivers showed up. This is 15 people at this point, and so desperate for connection. There were so many tears and a need to talk to each other about how their lives have changed and continue to change. And so that accelerated the timeline on that program. And I'm already looking for some more funding to support a completely separate and parallel caregiver program for these folks. Constantly coming in, these folks, and asking for other resources in the community, which thankfully there are many, and I'm coming to find out so that I can do those referrals as well. And additionally, we've had some significant congregational support. About 55K has come in through our congregation. People, I'm not sure there's a family I've talked to in our own congregation who hasn't been touched one way or another by dementia. We have any number, because part of our congregation is aging. We have any number of folks who show up on Sunday who clearly have memory loss in our own community as well. And so people have been just unbelievably generous to us. And we're hoping with that kind of a stream of funding, plus our associations with Agency on Aging and Health and Welfare, and hopefully the VA, that we're going to figure out how to build this into a really sustainable program. We're expecting to move up to 3 days a week, probably late spring, and ultimately 4 days a week, and then start looking around at our other church campus and at other churches in the area who've already expressed interest in setting up similar programs. So we're hoping that this becomes a network, possibly with Cathedral acting as an umbrella organization to handle things like the billing and some of the fundraising and some of the training and that sort of thing, to make it easier for smaller churches and other organizations to set this up who don't have the infrastructure that we have. So that's kind of the strategic vision at this point for the program.
Thank you, Irene. We're gonna move on to Kathy so that we have enough time to get some of our other topics in. But thank you so much for telling us about the Cathedral of the Rockies Respite Program. So Kathy Lucina, she does not have a PowerPoint, but we wanted, she and I threw out that we wanted to discuss the topic: how do families help to find respite care when they are when they just need it temporary, such as traveling or they're going on vacation? What are some other options for families who are looking for that 24-hour, couple of days that they need that coverage? So Kathy's going to discuss some options for them. Kathy?
Yeah, I've basically spent the past almost 5 years helping people find independent living, assisted living, and memory care facilities. During that time, I would run across people who needed kind of a short-term solution for exactly what Julie just was describing, where they wouldn't be there as long, but they definitely would need to be someplace other than their home. And what I find is there's a challenge on that on two fronts. One is actually being able to identify the community. And the second piece is the affordability factor of it. So the first part is that the majority of the facilities obviously rent their space, lease their space on a long-term basis. In general, they don't have rooms available for family to just come stay in or for individuals to, utilize for a respite purpose. That isn't to say they won't do it, but it becomes a case-by-case basis, and it's provided more or less when it's needed. The problem that the family runs into with that model, which exists pretty much across the board in the Valley, is that I find that there's no such thing as pre-planning for it. So if you approach a facility and say, hey, I want to take a vacation in June, they don't know what that room is going to look like at that point. If they can lease the room, they're going to. So what that does is force the family into a short-term planning position when this is a big deal for the family, because a lot of times a lot of money is being invested for that vacation. What they're looking at is, well, let us know a couple weeks ahead of time. And again, you're trying to make other plans in conjunction with knowing you're going to have that plan available as well. So that is the one half of the challenge. Then the other half of the challenge is the cost. Because of what the facility has to go through to allow that person to come in, which includes a full assessment of that individual, which they do for every resident that they admit, it can be a spending. And typically, just kind of throwing a number for budget purposes out there, it runs about $250 a day. Though that may not sound too off from maybe the cost of a hotel, the challenge is you're going to run into minimum stay times. And it can be anything from 2 weeks to a full month, where a vacation time might last a week. So again, it's a bigger proposition than just simply finding a place for this person to stay temporarily. There's a couple of benefits to doing that kind of approach. If the individual, your loved one, may ultimately be going to go to a community for a long-term purpose, it's a good way to introduce them to it. And even if you're only gone a week, to let them stay the entire time that's you're going to have to allocate anyway, just so they understand what the environment's like, they can get kind of acclimated to it over a long period of time. So you can actually look at it in a bigger picture when you're actually going to be paying for that cost. I've also experienced families who, at the point at which maybe it's simply a long weekend they're trying to accommodate, maybe a Thursday to a Monday, they have actually found, cost-wise, that if they approach a home care company to come in and to provide that short-term solution, though expensive, because they certainly are running $40 to $50 an hour under normal circumstances, it ends up being less expensive than a commitment for a 2-week or monthly stay. So, I wish I had a really good news that all you have to do is make a phone call and we're glad to have them. But it is something of a process, and you have to just be really flexible and know ahead of time what's going to happen.
Kathy, I had a question, and I think you would be really great at answering this question. How can you help reassure a caregiver? So you mentioned that facility care and then looking at possibly having to go with an agency for that vacation time. How can you reassure the caregiver that they're going to get good quality coverage, or to help build that relationship with that respite provider, so that the caregiver is comfortable and the care receiver is comfortable?
Yeah. And in the cases that I've experienced, they've already had a relationship with a home care company of some kind. So they already have that comfort level. And again, it comes to the pre-planning so that if in fact that is the path you're going to take, then I would encourage them to begin to bring some of those additional staff into the home in advance, because you're going to want your loved one to be comfortable and familiar with who it is that's going to be there with them now, for extended periods of time. There are a lot of really great home care companies out there. They are devoted and committed to everything we've been talking about today. So they're not hard to find, but it certainly is worth the investment of doing it ahead of time, so that you're not getting a phone call, a day into your excursion and you can't get back to help.
Great. Well, I was going to open it up to questions and answers. We have about 9 minutes left. Just 2 questions that came into the chat was, this one was for Lisa. Lisa, how long is your wait list typically run to find a respite provider for a family?
Yeah, it's a little bit tricky because it goes by location. So if we have a volunteer, maybe that comes on board that lives in Nampa, I look at the wait list and the family's in Nampa, and then if the volunteer is a female or a male. So that's a really hard question. Sometimes I'm literally matchmaking them that week with a volunteer. And then other times, unfortunately, they stay on our wait list for the duration. So I always encourage families that it's definitely worth it to get on the wait list because you just don't know.
Great. And then there was one, and Karen Kaiser had this question. So Karen Midlow, I'll get to you in a moment. It was for Irene, wanting to know about how many participants you're currently serving.
We're currently serving 15. I just had 2 more caregivers contact me yesterday. Both of whom sound like they're going to be showing up next week. So probably 17.
Okay, awesome, great. Karen Midlow.
Couple of questions for you, Irene. Number one, is there like I'm from the assisted living world, so there was a lot of paperwork and doctors, physicians' paperwork, et cetera, that needed to be done. Is that something needs to be completed and with the families as far as the process? And then the second question, with the fact that you've got the daycare and stuff, have you all started integrating some intergenerational activities and things? Because that to me seems like what a gift. So
it is the littles come up almost every session, one or the other of the groups from downstairs, and it's just such a hoot. They come up and sing for us or bring pictures and just wander around, and we have conversations among all of us. Yes, it's fabulous. Our family minister, Pastor Stacy, and I work pretty closely together actually to make sure that happens. Paperwork, there is about a 5-page packet. We do not ask medical questions. I have no way to handle HIPAA compliance for some of this, and we don't need it. We are a social model. We get very clear with folks, and I'm very clear about where that line is because we don't want to start blurring that in any way. My volunteers are not medical caregivers, and they have huge hearts, but they can't give meds. Our policies on keeping vulnerable adults safe mean they can't be alone in the restroom with somebody. There has to be at least 2 volunteers in there if there is a participant in there, and we cannot help them toilet. We can help them button up or zip their dress or something, but we try and really keep that line very clear.
Excellent. And then do you allow, I'm working with one lady and her husband has dementia and she is just, and no story. Can they come and like observe and watch and see because she's afraid and
Absolutely. Almost every one of our caregivers have come and stayed for at least part of a session. They are welcome to come and stay anytime. And we have one married couple where she comes with her husband every time. It's a fun thing that they do. And so they're always there together. But at least for an hour or so to make sure that they feel comfortable with us, comfortable with the program, and that their loved one is connecting with folks. I give huge credit to our volunteers, though. They're just so warm and loving and welcoming that usually it's a very, very easy transition. They're like, so long to their partner pretty quick because they tend to connect.
Thank you. And I'm blown away how lucky we are to be in the Treasure Valley with all these amazing resources. And we need to just get the word out there to our community. These are just amazing. So thank you all for the wonderful presentation. Very informative. I've learned a lot today. Thanks.
Well, I'm going to end it because we do have our subject matter experts are all on with Irene, Kathy, Lisa. I'm going to just end it with a simple, and if you guys could all just kind of be short. What's your pep talk to encourage a caregiver to take respite? What's your 30-second elevator spill that you give to a caregiver to take that respite break? So Lisa, I'm going to start with you.
I feel like it's always helpful to come from the angle of this, you're doing this for your loved one. If you don't take care of yourself, you can't give good care to your loved one. So again, that moment of relief phrase is so nice, Julie, because it directly translates into their care. And people wait so long too until they're like beyond burned out. And so we try really hard to encourage folks to take advantage of it before you're at that point.
Kathy, what's your pep talk to caregivers?
I would probably tag on to what Lisa just said. And if you're not in a good place, you can't be in a good place for others. So don't be afraid to give self-love and self-care, because you'll be able to extend more than to the ones you love.
And Irene, your pep talk?
We try to make sure caregivers know that we will cherish and care for and connect with their loved one, and that their loved one will benefit as well, as they will benefit from having some time to themselves to renew themselves.
And I echo everything that Kathy, Lisa, and Irene just said. I always, with a caregiver, I've seen caregivers come in and have the most defeated body language I've ever seen of anyone, thinking that the world is resting on their shoulders. And it is the most difficult task to take care of someone, especially someone that you love 24/7. So I always, exactly what they say, you have to take a moment for yourself. You cannot run on empty all day long. You have to fill your gas tank back up, and you have to do that by taking a moment for yourself to step away and get that break.
Mm-hmm.